This is the MTN 530 News.
Welcome everyone to a live look at the Stockman Bank weather cam this Tuesday. The summer heat is here right now, but Mother Nature is preparing to flip that script. How far will the temperatures fall? And if you haven't gotten your COVID-19 vaccine, this Thursday you get another chance to cash in on your first shot. We have the details. And tonight, a Billings man tells his story of true friendship found in a war-torn country, a friendship that's now getting stronger right here at home. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, friendship comes in many forms, but some are undeniable from the start. Well, this was true for a Billings soldier deployed overseas for the first time away from home and in search of companionship. He found it in an unlikely source. Here's Q2's Andrea Lutz with tonight's Positively Montana.
It's a bond that only began a year ago.
She cracks me up.
But long before that, fate was already working its magic.
She came to me at a point in her life when she needed help, and it's like I could always use a friend, but right then it was like, I really needed her, and I think it was just, out of that necessity, we were just there for each other, and our bond has just grown stronger.
We often refer to those serving our country as heroes. Stephen Bonacarrere is an active duty Army Reserve officer with the National Guard. In December of 2019, he was deployed to Kuwait, Iraq, where he in fact became a hero to Sugar Cube.
I called her Sugar Cube just because she's white and she's sweet like a sugar cube.
But she wasn't always such a clean shade of white.
She looked pretty rough. She was muddy all the time because, it was so hot over there. But there was pools of water that she'd lay down in to cool off. She was pretty skinny when I found her because, I'm sure she just lived off scraps or whatever. A lot of the coworkers would say that there was 2 dogs on base, and one of them was really clean and one of them was really dirty. I was like, no, there's just one. So I started feeding her, and then, we got in the pattern of she'd always show up and be there on time.
It's cooling down?
She was so timid around people, and at that point she would approach me and she would actually let me pet her, which was pretty cool, but other people tried to approach her and she just wouldn't have it.
The relationship between a human and a dog is a curious thing. A dog will give unconditional love, but also somehow knows to teach it.
Like a symbiotic relationship. It was like, she was obviously in need of, love and attention, but I was too. I look forward to seeing her every day and every night.
In a war-torn country on the other side of the globe from Montana, fate was well at work.
Hi, Mommy.
But also at work was reality.
You can't explain to an animal, like, hey, it's been a great 10 months, but I gotta go now. Hope you find someone else.
Hey, baby. Bye-bye.
Good girl. Yeah, now go play.
Stephen reached out to an organization called SPCA International, a global animal rescue.
There's a lot of service members that have brought dogs home with them in the past, and then I was like, okay, how do I do that?
He filled out the paperwork and waited.
I have to know in my heart that I did everything I could to try to bring her home.
Okay, we're set to fly.
Finally, Operation Baghdad Pups came through, sponsoring the cost of vet checkups, vaccinations, and a flight to a new home.
Got her food, and she's marked because we have other dogs going to Canada, so we know this one is the American one from the flag.
Sugar Cube beat Stephen home by 3 days.
She's like, I don't see anything.
I see you.
Many times when we think of a hero, we think of a man in a cape. For Sugar Cube, heroism came in the form of a young soldier from Montana.
Baby, hey, being over there in that experience, we went through some stuff. You talk with your family, but it's like, they'll never know what that place was like, or what you were going through at that time and period in your life.
It just goes to show, sometimes the force of fate is already working, long before we even know.
Just looking at her and just thinking about all the memories that we shared, and then I'd love to know what her story looked like before I met her and how she got there, and how she survived. I don't know. I mean, there's a million different possibilities of what it could have been.
A million possibilities of what could have been, but just one that was meant to end like this. In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Thanks, Andrea. Now, the nonprofit that Stephen used to rescue Sugar Cube serves dogs and cats. The group also has resources in a variety of countries, not just Iraq. Well, Montana Governor Greg Gianforte paid tribute to our armed forces in Helena today. He stopped by the Montana National Guard Army Aviation Support Facility for a tour. The building was originally constructed in the 1960s and is home to the 189th General Support Aviation Battalion. It houses 3 types of helicopters, UH-60 Blackhawk, CH-47 Chinook, and the UH-72 Lakota. It also has a heavy ramp to support the largest military aircraft, which assists the U.S. Army in its missions worldwide. Now, Gianforte says today's visit was in support of Armed Forces Day, which was on May 15th.
We need to be prepared. This is why we need to continue to invest in our military. This Army Aviation Support Facility supports the Guard and the Army across the nation in their missions, and it's critically important for our national security.
In other news tonight, in a move that blocks legislative Republicans from gathering internal communications and documents from a state Supreme Court justice, a state judge today says the legislature is exceeding its authority. The order from State District Judge Mike McMahon is the latest development in what's become an ongoing political battle launched by top Republicans against the state judiciary. Both the Attorney General and legislative Republicans allege that the Supreme Court and certain judges are biased against GOP-passed laws which may come before the courts. Now, Republicans are trying to use legislative subpoenas to acquire internal judicial emails and documents to prove their point. But McMahon says the legislature does not have legal authority to subpoena documents. The judge said if lawmakers believe judicial misconduct has occurred, they must file a complaint with the State Judicial Standards Commission. Now, McMahon's ruling came in a case involving only Supreme Court Justice Jim Rice. The Supreme Court itself is expected to rule later on the subpoena issue as it pertains to all Montana justices. Well, now to our chief meteorologist, Ed McIntosh in the Q2 Weather Center. And today we look back at a historic weather event that reached far and wide. I think it was the first time I ever got out of school.
Really?
It was the first school skip day.
And a lot of that came a little bit early, and we're talking about the anniversary of Mount St. Helens, the eruption that was 41 years ago today. Now, in that area, we had already been watching Mount St. Helens for the possibility of an eruption, but it actually had a little bit of a lull, and then this happened on this day 41 years ago. 15 miles up into the atmosphere, it pushed all that smoky plume and it started to move in the direction of Montana. It's one of those events I think anybody in the Pacific Northwest or who lived in Montana, Wyoming, even in North Dakota still remembers where they were when we started seeing this video. And that plume started to move over our area and brought a lot of smoke and even almost blackout conditions in some of the cities in the state. Take a closer look at the forecast details coming up in a little bit.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, this year marks the 29th year of Stamp Out Hunger. Tonight, Q2's Shaquille Cozart tells us how the Postal Service's role has changed and how you can help.
The United States Postal Service is partnering with the Billings Family Service again this year for Stamp Out Hunger. And instead of delivering food, they're delivering checks. I met up with 3 mail carriers as they talk about why it's important that the community continues to donate for Stamp Out Hunger.
Family Service approached us, actually we approached them that we want to do the envelopes because we didn't know if we were going to have another food drive this year because of the pandemic. And so they talked to me about the one-day food drive that KTVQ is going to do and that we would coordinate our envelopes with that food drive also.
Mail carriers will be delivering empty envelopes to all the residents on their routes starting June 8th. Residents will then be able to donate cash or checks that will be picked up and dropped off at Family Service.
Pretty much go to every address anyway, so delivering the envelopes is a lot easier for us. There's a need for food and extra resources for a lot of people in this community.
You know, the U.S. Postal Service is involved in this because we've got probably the most amount of delivery units around, and we could be able to spread that out even further and be able to help out the community much better that way because of our number of our vehicles and the people that we work with.
Reporting in Billings, I'm Shaquille Cozart with MTN News.
Thanks, Shaq. Now on June 10th, Q2 will host a food drive with Family Service. If you'd like to donate, you can drop off non-perishable food items here at Q2 in downtown Billings, as well as local Master Lube locations. For more details, head to ktvq.com. In other news, invasive species have already caused damage to our state. Now that includes the reason Lake Elmo must be drained this fall. Q2's Brandon Warren tells us how to deal with these invaders.
A seminar was held at Riverfront Park to educate school-age children on how to identify and prevent invasive species in our area.
We've got birds, we've got insects, we've got plants, we've got animals that are non-native, and they've been brought here by human interactions, and they're really starting to wreak havoc.
These invasive species can take over entire ecosystems, and because they have no natural predators, they go unchecked and are harmful for many reasons.
Essentially, they take up all those resources, those micro resources, and leave nothing for the natives, and the natives really suffer and tend to disappear.
They can take over areas where we want to go boating and fishing. The plants can become so thick that you can't fish or swim there anymore. They could get into irrigation systems. They could get into hydropower systems.
Identifying all the invasive species is nearly impossible, which is why the BLM has a free identification handbook. But even if you can't identify every invasive species, there's still a way to help keep them contained.
A good rule of thumb is if you don't know what it is, leave it alone.
Most of these species reproduce incredibly quickly, but that's not the only reason they're hard to get rid of.
That's a real important part, is you have to find it to eradicate it.
As you start to go outside more for the summer, the Weed District wants you to keep one thing in mind.
All summer long, let's everybody think about play, clean, go. Go out and play, have a good time, clean your clothing and your gear before you go somewhere else, and then go have fun.
In Billings, Brandon Warren, MTN News.
Thanks, Brandon. Brandon tells us the best thing to do if you find an invasive plant or animal species is to contact your county weed district. Well, up next on tonight's MTN 530 News right here on Q2, shots for cash. County health officials announced round 2 of a vaccine payday. We'll have the details in tonight's Health Watch. And in sports, Class B golfers begin their chase of a state title. We head to the course in just a bit.